younger, and I'm going to defer to you first because I think you've got a magnificent photo of yourself with a former Labor Prime Minister. So tell us about this photo of you and Gough Whitlam.
1974, I turned up to Wilson Hall with 2,500 people to the John Curtin Memorial Lecture. I'm the president of the SRC, and I turned up in the same pinstripe suit exactly as the Honourable Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. It was so embarrassing, but what could I do? I just introduced him, sat there. Farrago took a picture of me from underneath. It's a student paper, which made me look like the well-known puppet of the time, Jerry G. So it's something I treasure. I had a lifelong association with Gough, and the last time I saw him, I walked him down the escalator at the Darlinghurst Labor Party conference, and as he got into the car, he said, "And so to you, Danby, I pass the torch of electoral reform."
Oh, you lucky man.
Yeah.
What was he like as a mentor, Whitlam?
He read every new parliamentarian's speeches in Hansard, rang them up and critiqued them, and he was particularly pleased with me. We didn't agree on some areas of foreign policy, but he was particularly pleased with me because I was interested in democratic reform in Australia and seeing that electorates were fair and that the electoral process was fair. And it's a specialty. You know, Tony Smith and I were on that committee together, the Speaker. As far as I was concerned, he's a great man, a great figure of Australian history, and it's such an honour to have, as I'm sure with your relationship with Malcolm Fraser, that to have known these people, the greats.
Yeah, well, I met Fraser first in 1976, and he was very good to me. In those days, I was a student politician, and he took time to meet me, talk to me, chaperone you, and talk to you about politics. And there
was a famous picture of you with him in the Herald Sun.
There is, from many years ago. So, you know, he went off the rails a bit later on and did some meetings with Gough, I think, on the back of a truck about the Fairfax issue, but the takeover anyway. It's amazing how Whitlam was resurrected. That you know, leaving effectively in 75, he lost by the biggest majority ever. He saddled up again in 77, lost by the second biggest majority ever, and ended up a Labor hero. How does that happen?
Well, it's because he stood for big things: free university education, universal health insurance, the modernisation of Australia from a very narrow cultural point of view to a wider cosmopolitan Australia that we all enjoy so much now. A lot of that was set when we were at university. We took it for granted, Michael, but people remember those Whitlam years with affection, not because they agree with all of his economic policy, but because they love the opening up of Australia, which began then.
Labor people love a grand narrative, don't they? They don't do ordinariness. They revel in sort of the largesse of a Keating, the expanse of a Hawke. They don't do dull and boring, do they?
Well, dull and boring has its place, and the current leader gets criticised for being a bit focused in the way he approaches things. But in the modern era of politics, I don't think people can be as charismatic or as backslapping or as bottom-slapping as a Bob Hawke was in the past. You can't do that these days. And safe and boring and focused on issues is the way you've got to be.
Things are a bit different now.